Happy Monday, everybody. It's time for another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. Mike, there's nothing in here that'll make me cry this week, right?
Okay, great. Well, it's just a lot of Bobby Petrino stuff because he was hired last Tuesday, which was after our show.
It was.
So now all these people want to know about Bobby. Even though it's kind of old news, I got to answer the question.
Oh, absolutely. You definitely have to answer the questions. And I only joke about the tears thing because if you watched last week's show, you saw me and Mike get a little emotional on there. And everyone said in the comments, Courtney, I think you need to give Mike a hug. I think we all need a group hug after that one.
And it was real, too. I don't ever remember doing that before, ever on the air. But it was just, Kenny Palmer is like a guy that when you bring him up, it's there.
I know. I saw it in your face. It was the first time I've ever seen you get choked up. So, again, if you haven't watched last week's, go and watch that one before you watch this one. But we have a lot of Bobby Petrino questions today, as Mike said. So let's get into that Petrino talk, shall we? The first question on the show is going to be from Jay Moore, who asked, did you see the hiring of Petrino coming, or was it a total surprise?
Well, I saw the possibility the minute you realize that, and I can't remember how far back it was, that you start realizing that the word out of A&M is that Jimbo is gone, and you start thinking, okay, you know, but then that probably means Petrino is out. So I knew he would be available. So I immediately started calling people that I know, people not always athletic department people, because these days I don't know so many people inside the athletic department anymore, but know people that work at the university, people who are boosters that know what's going on around there. And I start calling around, and I just kept being told the same thing over and over again. He's not hireable. There's a state law that says if you're fired for cause, you can't be rehired. And then some people I'd bounce that off other people who didn't know what was going on over there, but they would say, hey, you know, there's exceptions, and I'm not a lawyer. I didn't care about all that. I was just walking around going, oh, everybody seems to think he's not hireable. And this is the way this works. Let me just say, first of all, that until Frank Broyles, and this was 2007, until he stepped down as AD, I didn't need any sources because Frank was my source, because Frank Broyles would answer any question I had. So I didn't need I don't like sources because you don't know. You never know if they know what they're talking about. You have to kind of go by reputation. If they tell you some things and it works, then you trust them more. But there's very few sources that aren't capable of being wrong. And then if you pass it along, that source doesn't get burned. You do, because you're the guy that said, hey, yeah, this guy that looks like, and then people are like, you stupid idiot, you don't know anything. So I don't like using sources. I don't like to have to do that. And for a long time, I didn't have to do it. But when you get new ADs and new people come in there and the whole thing is different now, it doesn't work the way he did. They aren't as media savvy as he was. Frank Broyles used to tell me, I don't care about bad publicity, I only care about no publicity, and I don't want no publicity, so I will tell you something even if it's bad for us. They don't have that attitude now. Nobody does anywhere. So I'm having to talk to these people, and you don't know for sure. But there was one guy, this is a funny story, I think. There was one guy that I don't use a lot, but I was talking to him about this, and he was more interested in the whole O-line thing because he didn't like Kennedy. He wanted him gone. It was his fault. Get him out of here. And he said, well, I'm telling you, it's the Baylor coach Mateo that's going to get that job. And I was like, what are you talking about? He said, I'm telling you, he said he had connections to both Pittman and Petrino. We know the connection to Pittman. Mateo was the
Eric Mateos?
Yeah, Mateos was a grad assistant.
Yeah.
In 2015, I believe it was.
Yeah, I think it was like 2013 to 2015.
But in 2015, he was a grad assistant when Pittman got hired before the bowl game, and he left for Georgia, so they had to have somebody coach the O-line, and he did. And Arkansas won, and their offensive line was impressive. And I remember being shocked that Brett Bielema didn't give him the job. He's like, what are you doing? And then the guy he ended up hiring was not very good. So at least this guy was saying he's going to get to come back here and show what he can do. Now, I don't know what his connection was with Petrino. I didn't ask him at the time. It wasn't even important to me because I was trying to ask about Petrino. And he said, yeah, he said he's coming back, and he's the only one that told me that. So I'm sitting there going, well, like 6 people say no, and one guy says yes. Okay, it's probably not happening.
Yeah.
And then the morning that the day morning that Petrino was hired, there's all these people arguing on Twitter X again about whether Petrino was a jerk, Petrino was a good guy. And I got tired of it. So I just got in the middle of that and said, guys, there's no point in arguing about this because he's not going to be the coach. And that's what burned me. Oh. Because then my wife comes in, and it's a day off, and she said, go out and do this and go over here and go to Sam's Club and go around. So I go make all these rounds, and then I get a call from a guy that is a pretty good source. And he says, hey, I'm having lunch. Won't you come talk to me? So I go in there, and he says, it's going to be Petrino, but you can't say anything about it. And I go, what are you talking about? I got to put, because I'm going to look stupid now. And he says, I can't help it. He said, it's not finished. And if you get in here and post it now, it can mess things up. He said, it's real delicate. They're trying to push all the right buttons for all the people that might get mad about it at the university. So you can't report it. So I just had to sit there. There's nothing I could do about it. You know, it's just what the job entails. But Petrino, yes, I was surprised because so many people had told me that it wasn't going to be him. And so I got surprised big time. But looking back on it, the one thing that I didn't put two and two together on, and I still, nobody's told me this, I just think this is what happened, that they realized that he's not coming back as the head coach, he's coming back in a totally different job. And what got him fired the first time, which was hiring his mistress over other qualified applicants for a job inside the inside the football program, that couldn't happen this time because he doesn't hire anybody. Yeah. He doesn't really supervise anybody but players. People, some of these questions, from you get the impression they think he's just going to start bossing everybody around over there. He's really in charge of the offense, and he'll coach quarterbacks, I'm pretty sure, but that's it. So, you know, that's why I think that they ended up hiring him. And the story of why it happened is really kind of different. Petrino described it as his agent, when he was at Missouri State, kept talking to him about you need to kind of get back to where you were. But I think he never came out and said this, but I think what she was implying is you'd be happier as an offensive coordinator at a big time school rather than the head coach here. And she eventually talked him into it, and so he went to A&M, and now he's here. I think he's going to be very different here, but the point is, I finally realized after the fact why it happened. But yes, I was surprised.
Yeah, I think a lot of us were, and to stick up for you a little bit, because it wasn't just you hearing that he couldn't be rehired, right? It was a lot of different sources. My sources even said he can't be rehired, Courtney. Look, here's the rule, all of this. Obviously, there's loopholes to everything, which we found out, but when you have people telling you who are higher ups who are saying it's going to take this hoop and this hoop and this hoop, and you're going, man, would they really want to go through all of that for him? Obviously they did. We're sitting here now. We're finding out we were wrong.
And I will say this. There were a lot of people complaining at the time that the athletic department was just clueless. They were just tone deaf. They weren't going to do anything to make the program better. And I will tell you, somebody moved heaven and earth to make this happen. It wasn't easy. And I think Pittman wanted him bad, and I think Juracek wanted to help Pittman. And so you got to give him credit for that, because I don't think it was easy to make that happen.
It didn't sound like it was easy. Again, when you talk to people in the athletic department who talk to me about what it would take, you have to get this guy to sign off and this person. It was a lot of hoops they had to jump through.
And they're still taking shots from people. I think there's faculty people that don't like it. I don't know about department heads, but I think I read a tweet from a guy yesterday, and I don't know what he is. I don't know if he's a professor over there or whatever, because you don't look it up. You don't know. But he was like, if this thing goes bad early next year, he's going to hear from us. Ooh. Because, you just put football over what was right, and now you think because it'll work, everybody thinks it's cool. What happens when people don't support you anymore because the plan didn't work? Then you're weak again. So they just took a chance and really moved some things to make it happen. So don't sit there and say that they just sat there and they were clueless about how to improve the program.
No, they definitely weren't on there. And we have more questions on Petrino, so we're going to move on to the next one. Austin.Hogfan says, so I believe most of the media weren't fond of Bobby Petrino. Do you really believe he has grown and changed to where not only the media but staff, administration, and players will see a new and improved person yet get the kind of results we believe he is capable of?
Well, first of all, that's an incorrect statement. The media liked him fine. I haven't polled everybody. I didn't go around and ask every single person.
You didn't, Mike? You
and
didn't
a lot
poll
of us that were back then, some of them aren't around anymore, and there's a lot of new guys that didn't work around him. I mean, that was 12 years ago, almost. But he was well liked. What we liked about him was, what we hate more than anything else is for them to say there's a press conference at 1:30 and at 2:15 you're still sitting there in the stupid room, and you know what you've done that before.
Oh,
you're waiting and you're waiting and you got other stuff to do and you're like, what is going on here? And he never did that. He showed up exactly on time. He was very punctual. And we also liked the fact that he didn't dodge questions. He wasn't one of these guys that if you didn't like the question, he wouldn't answer it or he'd get mad at you. He was fine. The problem he had was mostly either with people in the Broyle Center, other employees, or sometimes boosters or people that dealt with the athletic department. And I believe there was a reason for that. Petrino he's a control freak. Now this is him as a head coach. He wanted privacy, and the football locker rooms, the team meeting rooms, the coaches' offices, the weight room, the training room, all of that stuff was in the Broyle Center. Now, this is the old Broyle Center. And so he's running his football program in a public building where people are just walking around. And the story started to emerge. He tells somebody off, leave me alone. Somebody, hey, coach, and want to talk to him when he's walking down the hallway. I don't have time to talk to you. Get out of here. And so that's when he got this reputation of being kind of a jerk. And I think what ended up happening was he convinced Jeff Long, if you want this thing to work, you got to get up. I mean, look what basketball has. They're not over here in the athletic department. Look at the track team. Look at any of the rest of them. They've got their own facilities. We don't. And we're in football. What are you doing here? And so Jeff Long went, okay. And they raised the money, started raising the money, and they drew up some plans. And Petrino got fired before the building even was under construction. But so he's never seen it before. And what was interesting in the press conference is he got asked, what was it like to finally see the building that you designed? And he was real happy, and he said, yeah, it was really good. Now, what I remember is when it finally got built, and I went through it for the first time, I went, I can see that Petrino designed this. Because first of all, you come in, there's 2 doors on the main floor, and there's kind of a museum area with some trophies and stuff. But then if you want to go anywhere, you got to get permission to go anywhere else. You just can't wander in wherever you want to go. And then where are the locker rooms? Where are the team meeting rooms? Where is the training room? Where is all this stuff? It's about 15 feet underground. There's no windows. You couldn't be a player sitting in the running backs room while a meeting is going on and be looking out the window because you see some girl out there that you know, or you see one of your friends. You can't do that because there aren't any windows.
No, there are no windows.
And I think he did that on purpose for the privacy. And then then you come out and you go into the indoor. Okay, the indoor's secure. People just can't wander in there. And then even if you go outdoor, they've got that 6-8 foot brick fence around the whole thing. So it's Petrino. It's leave us alone. We've got our own place over here. And now what's going to happen is he's going to kind of disappear in there because he's not going to be doing press conferences because Sam Pittman doesn't let him do that. We'll hear from him twice a year.
Yeah.
Once in the spring and once in the fall. And we've had our time with him. He's not going to be coming back around going, hey, I'm Bobby. What else do you want to know? Yeah. So he's going to vanish over there inside. And some people got mad because they don't get this, but I said, I look at it as like some guy in World War II that we never knew about that was underneath London in a room directing all the bombers that went and bombed everybody, because you don't see him, but he's over there. That's Petrino. He's in there devising these things and nobody sees him, and that's what he should do.
Yeah, I mean, even if he goes in the booth, that it'll be even less seen if you don't see him.
Now, he may be on the field. He said he wasn't sure which one he was going to do, but if he's in the booth, he's even less visible.
He's even less visible.
You'll see it on TV where they go, yeah, there he is. And
in the booth, making sure
unless he jumps up and cracks somebody over the head with a Coke bottle, you're not going to know whether he's mad or not.
Mike, that just put a very interesting image in my head. That's hilarious. Hopefully he doesn't do that in this season. Dr. Stark says, you mentioned a couple of weeks ago that you heard from people in Aggie land saying how Bobby was a changed man. I'd like to hear more on this also.
Well, I didn't say I heard from anyone. I was reading all year long. Once he went to A&M, I was reading websites, Aggie websites, trying to see if there was anything negative. Because the last time I'd heard anything negative about Petrino was when he was at Louisville for the second time. Apparently had some issues there. But I didn't hear anything at Missouri State. Nobody seemed to have a problem with him there, and not at A&M. In fact, one of the stories that I was reading, it was somebody, I don't know if it was in the athletic department, but they said they were walking down a hallway and they were carrying some stuff and dropped it. And they said they looked up and there he was, and he was helping pick it up. And I'm not saying he wouldn't have done that in the old days here, but that does seem to indicate he's not just some mean guy that goes around and you shouldn't have dropped that, and walk off. So no, nobody told me anything about him. I was just reading this stuff about him.
And it was on the forums and online and
various
different places.
Aggie websites, people, fans talking about him. And look, the bottom line is, if there were problems with him at A&M, you would have heard about it. It would have gotten out. And think about this. We didn't hear anything about there being any issues between he and Jimbo, but once he got here and was free to talk, there were some issues. He got controlled pretty good over there. And that's what a lot of people thought. But you didn't hear anything about that from him when he was over there.
No, nor from inside the program. No one was leaking.
There's stuff going on.
Yeah, and you would think that Texas A&M fans right now, they have no reason to protect him. They have if something was bad.
I think he did what he was told to do there.
Exactly. I think he did too. And I think, you listen to him talk now in that press conference and talk about how much he loved Arkansas still and how much he rooted for the Hogs. Even after all of that went down, he still cared. He still cared about the players. I mean, when he got choked up,
there are people that think that he's making that up, but I'm telling you, it's not my impression that he's doing that, because I've been hearing that for years, the remorse that he has.
Well, go back to when he spoke at the Little Rock Touchdown Club.
Exactly.
He got emotional there, too, and he had no reason to, get emotional there besides, hey, I feel this is truly what I feel. Sherlock Hogg says, "What a week! I still can't believe we have Bobby back. I feel that this will be a huge success or a spectacular failure. I truly hope he still has that fire that can make us competitive." What do you think, Mike?
Well, you talked about it, and this is what I've been told, is that he doesn't just have fire. He has a burning desire to make up for what he did. You can either believe that or you don't believe it. You can accept it or you cannot accept it. When he was fired, I was working at another station, and I was working with a guy named John Ingham, who was one of the best people I've ever worked for or worked with or worked around in television. He was really good. And he'd come here from El Paso, and he knew a guy really well in El Paso that was one of Bobby Petrino's best friends. So the day after Petrino was fired, we're talking about it, and I said, "You ought to call that guy, and just see if he's heard anything from him." And I was sitting there when he called. I couldn't hear what was being said. I could only hear John's end of the conversation. But when he hung up, he said, he said, Petrino called him and told him he really screwed up bad. He said they actually were going to give him an out. He wasn't going to be fired. He just had to agree to some things. He had to apologize. He had to agree to an amended contract, which would specify things he couldn't do. And he apparently told, according to this guy, Petrino said he told Jeff Long, "You're trying to turn me into a monk, and I won't do it." And then he thought they wouldn't fire him. He said, "I thought that they were so grateful for what I had done," because Petrino had made Arkansas top 3 in the SEC for 2 years running. I think they were actually number 2 team one year and number 3 the next. So he had made them relevant again. And he said, "I knew how important that was to those people. I heard it all the time, and I thought I was bulletproof, and there's no way he would fire me." And then when he did, I thought to myself, "Oh boy, did I screw up." And so the guy just said, look, he wishes he could undo it. And he said he just hopes someday he gets a chance to. And so then 11, 12 years goes by, and he says the same thing when he comes back here.
Yeah.
And now he's saying the same thing when he goes to the touchdown club, and now 2 years after that, he's saying it again. I just think it's real. And if you believe it's real, here's what you need to understand. This is a man that's really good at what he does. He's not going to be the guy he was at A&M. He had no particular, he just wanted to, he was having fun and he enjoyed the job, but he was handicapped at A&M somewhat. Here, it's his offense. And guess what? He wants to make it work. He wants to make up for what he did before, and he's going to do everything he can to make Arkansas relevant offensively. Again, the fans ought to be going crazy over that. Now,
well, they are. They are going crazy over that.
Well, some are and some aren't. Look, as the reporter in me says, okay, but he has to get players. He can't do that just with drawing stuff on paper. You know, you got to get a transfer quarterback. You got to get some receivers. You got to rebuild that offensive line. You got to do a lot of things. So, are they going to give him 3 years or 2 years or whatever? And I'm saying he only has 1 year if it's really bad. If things go really bad next year, I think may be it. Now, Petrino might stay. I could see them going out and going after Barry Odom, and Odom likes Petrino, and he might come back and leave him here. But if the real way this works is if the offense gets better, they go to a bowl game next year, they're improving, and then the year after that, they're getting better. And then I might think at some point Pittman may retire, and then I don't know what's going to happen there.
So you aren't a part of the theory, and this is a theory, guys. I'm going to make that very, very clear, that I think SportsCenter and Scott Van Pelt did on SportsCenter tonight, where he was talking about, look, I've seen this on Twitter, that one Razorback fan, I don't remember what the Twitter user was, that came out and said, look, they're setting it up so that Sam Pittman, if things go south next year, 9 games in, 8 games in, 7 games in, I think he gave him 9 games, that Petrino will take over. Are you not part of that theory?
No,
that?
I think that's wrong, but I don't know for sure. I mean, it's a guess. We're all guessing. The people that say that are guessing.
I said it was a theory, so.
Yeah, it's a theory, and my theory is that he doesn't want to be the head coach here.
Do you think Petrino told KJ to hit the portal, or was that KJ deciding he needed a change?
Well, as we sit here, which we tape the show on a Monday, so
we do.
As we sit here
and
early,
the portal opened.
Portal opened today, but as we're sitting here, at least before we went on to do this, he was still not in the portal. So I don't think he told, as of right now, nobody told anybody to do anything. And we had a long discussion about this. I don't think that Pittman likes him. I don't think Pittman would tell him to leave, and I don't think Petrino would come in and go, I don't like that guy, tell him to get out. I think this is the mistake fans are making right now. They think these two guys aren't on the same page because they don't like Pittman, but they do like Petrino. So Petrino has to be this guy that's coming in and, boy, this guy's stupid. Wait till I'm gonna get around all the dumb stuff that he wants me to do. And I think they're more on the same page than any of those people realize. So I don't think that Pittman would come in here I don't think Petrino would come in here if Pittman says he likes KJ and say, oh, you got to get rid of that guy. He's not my kind of quarterback. So I don't think that's going on. I do think that KJ has a lot of opportunities. And the reason I think he hasn't done anything yet, and remember, some people are confused. They thought he hit the portal when he didn't. But I think the reason this has taken a while is I think he's got options. And if you're about to enter the portal, and you know 3 different schools, and supposedly it's Mississippi State, Auburn, and South Carolina all want him, what would you do? I know what I'd do.
Yeah.
I'd be talking to him. I'd be saying, hey, well, what are you going to do for me? And then I'd try to go to the place I like the best.
Right.
And then you hit the portal, and then you go.
Well, yeah, but you're not supposed to talk to them until you hit the portal.
You're not supposed to. I'm not saying
playing devil's advocate here.
I said that's what I would do. I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that he hasn't hit the portal doesn't suggest to me that he's staying, and I could be wrong about that.
Well, no, I mean, the fact that he hasn't hit it just yet definitely makes me think that he's thinking about his options, right?
Yes.
Because if you hit the portal, you're closing the door for Arkansas. You can't go in the portal and go, oh, just kidding, guys, I really want to stay. Arkansas is going to be like, no. What do you mean you want to stay? What do you mean you want to? We just had an exit interview and you said you wanted to hit the portal, so go and enjoy another opportunity. I think it'd be weird to hit the portal and go, just kidding, I love Arkansas. You know, that would be
I
very
don't
strange.
think either one of us think he's back, but we could be wrong.
I don't think he's back. I truly believe that he will thrive somewhere else. He has given a lot of time and energy to the Arkansas Razorbacks, and I think he would benefit from a new opportunity. That's just my opinion, but I'm not KJ Jefferson, so we'll see if we're wrong on that one. Light Hoss Harry, did I get that right? Like Hoss Harry from Hogville asked, wonder if Sam can wrangle Bobby's vicious tongue lashing of players and staff.
Well, I'm not sure he's going to do a lot of that. I'm not saying that he won't get on to somebody. I just have been told he doesn't do it the way he used to. Here's the thing about Pittman, and he gets criticized for this. He's not one of those guys. He does not cuss out players. They had a guy on the staff, I'm not going to name him, he was a very good coach, and Pittman arranged for him to get another good job and gave up a guy that was doing a good coaching job because the players had reached a point where they said, he talks to us in a way that we just don't like. And so there are a lot of coaches that would just, if your players came to you, they'd say, tough it out, you know? I don't care what he says to you. But Pittman is a guy that believes that you don't, he's kind of a more you wouldn't think it to look at him, but he's kind of a more politically correct guy. He just doesn't believe. And so I think, again, because Petrino knows what he is and knows how he is and has even made the statement in that press conference the other day that while he likes to run his offense a certain way, he knows that Pittman is a big run guy. And he said, if he came in and overruled me on a goal line situation, want to do this, he said, you think I'd tell him no? I don't want him chewing me out. So he made it clear he's not coming in here to tell this guy what to do, which would be stupid anyway. But you've got fans who believe that's going on, and I don't know why they think that.
I don't know why they think that either, but I also think you've got to look at how much time has passed since BP was a head coach here at Arkansas, and I think things have changed, right? Even head coaches will tell you, they'll say 10 years ago was a lot different than 2023 now. They're kids, and I hate to say this, you can't talk to kids the same way. You can't talk to them. So I really don't think that he's going to be bad, you know, what does he say, tongue lashing players?
Well, a lot of people think it's good cop, bad cop. You go, Petrino just starts yelling at a guy and cussing him out, and then he goes running off crying or something. And you know, here comes Sam Pittman going, oh, it's okay. He doesn't mean it. You know, I don't think that's going on. But, you know, there's these visual images that people have, and you just kind of go, I don't think that's what's going to go on.
No, I don't think so
We'll have to
either.
see. I mean, it'll come out if that happens, believe me.
Oh, it will, and I'm sure a player that maybe hits the portal and tells them, oh, it was because, Bobby Petrino was really mean to us and threw a bunch of F-bombs at us.
Right.
It will come out if that's how it happens, but he doesn't give me those vibes anymore. With Bobby Petrino back, is there any chance that Sam hires Houston to give halftime speeches? Only half kidding. We need motivation at half, and that question was asked by Jack Penguin on Hogville. I forgot to say his name.
And I don't think he probably would do it during a game, like at halftime, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't bring him over there before a practice from time to time. Houston, this guy can fire people up, and he understands he understands the fans. He can tell them about what fans think and what they want and make you understand you're a part. It's sort of like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I got into this whole deal, and a little bit last week, about what it means to be a part of something that is all of the lettermen that go all the way back. There's a club there. And if you're one of the new members of that club, you have a responsibility to people back there that came before you, the guys like Darren McFadden. You know, you don't let them down. And Houston would be good at coming in and reminding them of that because he knows it. He knows the emotion of that. And I think he's going to do a lot of other stuff here. I don't know exactly. Some people have told me that he may end up being the guy that runs it or raises money for this Edge, the new NIL thing, because he would be really good at getting people to do that, or he may end up at the foundation or something like that. And then I've also had people tell me that A&M has a former head coach that goes around on game day, and he's all dressed up in the Aggie colors and the blazer.
Well, look at Steve Spurrier at Florida.
Yeah.
Can't he be hired like Steve Spurrier?
Is that what he does?
He goes around, he raises money for the university. He's just basically like a way to help the athletic department in a form that's not so hands-on with the football team. Like he comes to practices sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it when Steve Spurrier was there. He came to practices because I covered them and I watched him just kind of watch and stay hands off, but talk to the team if he needed to, I think they could hire Houston Nutt in that capacity.
Well,
I don't know what Steve Spurrier's title is, but.
Well, in this particular instance, the guy's going around on game days, going into the big skyboxes and just going in and visiting with people in skyboxes.
Steve Spurrier does at Florida. I think they might have the same title, but that's
Whatever
what he does.
Whatever the job is, I don't know what they'd call it, but they need him up there doing stuff because I'm telling you, he is a throwback to a time that the fans can relate to. When that program was closer to the average fan than it is right now, they've gotten away from the closeness that Frank Royals always believed the athletic department should have to the fans. And Houston can bring that back.
Oh, yeah.
So
I mean, I listened to Houston Nutt for the first time. I had never met the man. I'd only heard about him and watched him on TV. But when I went to that Hogs Plus documentary premiere,
right,
and he got up and spoke about the team and the players who were there, I was like, man, I want to run through a brick wall for this man. I get it. I understand how the players felt because, man, he gets you motivated. He gets you excited.
Yeah, I just don't think he's going to be in there at the halftime. I would be a little bit surprised.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think Steve Spurrier is there at halftime giving speeches to Billy Napier's team. But I think they could hire him like that. MB Hogg says, I know Sam is thought of as one of the best offensive line coaches in the country, but that hasn't played out the same way in his time here at head coach. Do you think he is just better at teaching the linemen someone else's schemes rather than coming up with his own?
First of
you
all,
had to sigh for that one.
First of all, this whole thing about what went wrong is confusing to me. I'm going to admit I'm not sure. It's just baffling that they had these problems. I don't blame it all on Cody Kennedy. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure whose fault it is. Maybe it's partly Kennedy's fault, partly Sam Pittman's fault. I think what they did was they misevaluated some players when they recruited them. I think they misevaluated the situation with certain players on campus and didn't realize they needed to train them better or whatever. Some of it could have been the offense, but although we saw when they changed things, it still, I mean, you couldn't argue in the Missouri game and the Auburn game that they'd made some big giant changes because it looked terrible and the blocking was still terrible. So I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but I don't think whatever it was, I think you've got to change personnel. I don't think it's just Petrino comes in and comes up with a new scheme and you could take the same guys that we had this year and put them out there and they would look magically better. I think it's more complicated than that.
I think so as well. And we've talked about it on this show before where different people have asked, what went wrong with the offensive line? And we said, well, there's a lot of things, but we're not there at practice. We only got to see so little of practice. It was basically warm-ups and things like that. Yeah. And so it's hard to tell you that answer without being there and seeing what's going on, right? We would agree with that.
Yep.
WV Hog fan asks, if Bobby Petrino had not lied to the people of Arkansas and to Jeff Long about his affair, do you think he would have not been fired but maybe faced a suspension? After all, the cover-up is usually worse than the crime.
Well, again, if you believe the man that talked to John Engelman, his friend, who said he talked to Petrino, they were going to give him a chance. He just had to apologize and agree to this amended contract. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's true because I didn't talk to the guy. And even if I did, I wasn't standing there when Petrino supposedly called him and talked to him. So when you don't know specifically what happens, you can only speculate. The thing, though, that really got him fired was not lying about it. It was, again, you hire somebody that works for you, that you are involved with, you're in a relationship with that person, and you hire them over other qualified applicants, that puts the school in a position to be fired or to be sued.
Yeah.
What could have happened, and I don't think it did happen, but anybody that was up for that job that Jessica Doral got, they could have come back and said, well, they discriminated against me, because of this. So I'm suing you for the job, however much money I would have earned there. I'm suing you for $500,000. And I guess they didn't get sued, but that was why it happened. It was a really dicey situation. He put the university in a bad situation.
Yeah, well, I think and I'm not a lawyer, so don't quote me on this, but the fact that he did get fired can be used in the court of law. Like he did it and we fired him. If they kept him on staff, then people go, wait, I'm suing you. You've kept the guy who did this on staff, right? That could open the door for lawsuits.
That may have prevented him from being sued. I don't know. I didn't look into that a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that's why he got fired, not because he lied, but and that's a problem too. But it's what he did.
But there is some, and I've talked to some different people about this. But if you do open and confess, right, which is what I forgot who asked the question, WV Hog fan. If you open up and confess, maybe it would have helped in the sense of like, okay, thanks for letting us know. Now we can kind of talk about ways. It doesn't mean he wouldn't have been fired.
Yeah.
But maybe it would have lessened the blow a little bit. I don't know. I'm just saying, I think that that's something that would have, should have, could have, we talk about the what ifs all day long, but he's back. And
That's
he's
right.
back here at Arkansas. Field Turf wants to know, with Kennedy gone, does that mean I laugh at these questions, Mike. With Kennedy gone, does that mean Sam takes over the O-line? That means Bobby will be chewing on Sam when they don't perform well. What?
I think he's trying to be funny, to be honest.
Okay, all right. I hope so.
But there were people that actually suggested that this happened, that Sam Pittman take over the offensive line.
And that's ridiculous. All
Look,
right.
the best example that I can give is why that's a dopey idea was in '92 when Frank Broyles fired Jack Crow one game into the season, and he appointed Joe Kynes the interim head coach. And Joe, who was the defensive coordinator, continued to try to coach the defense while he was the interim head coach. He did both jobs. And he admitted it when they won 3 games that year, and he didn't get the job permanently. And he admitted when it was over that he'd made a mistake, that if he could go back and do it over again, he would have put somebody else in charge of the defense and he would have been the head coach. There are people that think a head coach just walks around, humming a lot and watching practice. There's so many things that the guy has to do. One of the things Pittman talked about was that now that he has the guy he wants as an offensive coordinator and the guy he wants as a defensive coordinator, he's more free to deal with this NIL issue, which we've talked about on a previous show was a problem. It's a problem everywhere. Coaches are going to have to figure out a way to make more people happy, keep divisions from popping up within the team because you're making this much and I'm only making that much. And Pittman the other day pretty much said, I'm going to be spending a lot of time on that too. So he's got a lot of
responsibilities.
He's got a lot of responsibilities, and his and also during practice, you got to walk around and watch everything. You can't just stand there and look at the O-line and be oblivious to everything that's going on. So no, I don't think that, and I'm pretty sure he was joking, but there were people that seriously said that should happen. Now, he's got an O-line coach. He hired Baylor's offensive line coach.
Well, reportedly, right? That hasn't come out just yet, as we're recording on Monday.
I think it has.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't feel like they announced it, but I could be wrong.
I could be wrong, but I think it's out there.
Okay.
And
I thought it was still reportedly, but yeah,
well,
okay.
We'll find out.
Well, I think it's true. I think he's their new offensive line coach.
But anyway, the point is, again, we talked about it. I mean, I was surprised he wasn't hired before. But I think the guy is good. I think there was solid reasons why they brought him in here, and I don't think Pittman's going to go out and hire a guy with a reputation of knowing what he's doing and then stand there and look over his shoulder all the time. I think he wants to be able to let those coaches coach that football team, and he takes care of all the things that a head coach has to take care of.
Absolutely, and you have that person as a position on your staff to help for them to take the load off of you a little bit, right? That's Pittman may be helping with the offensive line, but he cannot do it all by himself and be the head coach. I think that's way too much. Moving on, though, That'll Do Pig says, when I saw Missouri is playing Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl, I laughed and I laughed. It's going to be brutal for Missouri. What do you think?
Well, I don't want to say this because everybody knows I don't like Missouri.
What are you going to say?
Well, here's the point. This is a big deal to them. I mean, they're going to a big bowl game, and they're all in on it. Their players aren't hitting the portal. They're going to go. Not
as of now. Not as of now on Monday, right?
And they're going to be ready to play in this game. Whereas what's happening at Ohio State, they've already lost their quarterback, and there are fears they're going to lose some defensive players.
A lot of their defense is one of the best in the country.
Yeah.
I think I was looking at the stats in total defense. They rank 3rd in the nation. And we have an Ohio State guy on our staff. He's a really big Ohio State fan. He goes, we've already lost this Missouri game. I was like, what? You're not even going to give him a chance? He goes, all of our defensive guys are going to go to the draft, portal, whatever.
So this sets
Yeah.
up really well for Missouri, which, as much as I hate to admit it, they're a really good team this year. And I think they'll win the game.
Can we say that right now on the show? You say
Well,
Missouri's
I think
beating Ohio State in the
Ohio
Cotton Bowl.
State didn't have the kind of year they wanted to have anyway. And now they lose their quarterback, who wasn't all that good. But if he's not good, who's the third guy, or the second guy?
I don't know who their backup is this year.
So,
no offense,
and again,
but.
you start losing defensive players, like you say, that was the strength of their team. What are you going to do? And I don't see any. I think Missouri will win this game. Wouldn't be surprised if they won it by 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Mike, I was hoping someone would ask this question on the show today. My 3 Boneheads does ask it, and it's just curious on your thoughts about the college football playoffs. Did you agree with the 4 teams? If so, explain. If not, who would be your top 4? I had number 1, Washington, 2, Michigan, 3, Florida State, 4, Georgia.
Well, I'm pretty radical. I would have left Florida State in there. I would have left out Texas because I don't like them, first of all, and it's not very objective there. But they had some games, close calls, in the Big 12. And I think this whole thing about beating Alabama, it occurred back when Alabama, was having quarterback issues, which they didn't for most of the year. And Alabama, I think, is the best team in the country right now, and I think Georgia may be the second best. So I'd probably put them in there too, and I don't know who else I would leave out. But that's not the real issue. I have sat here on this show over and over again and talked about how stupid it is to have a 4-team playoff.
Yeah.
It's just dopey. And what people kept saying to me, these are Razorback fans, Mike, there's not more than 3 or 4 teams in the country every year that could win it, so there's no point in putting anybody in there because they'll just lose. Well, now you see why. Because you got burned. If we had 12 teams this year, we wouldn't have that problem. And the truth is, you're always leaving somebody out. You never know if you put somebody in what they were going to do. I don't know how so many people can sit and watch the NCAA basketball tournament every year and be clueless about this. Now they'll say, well, basketball is different from football. Not in this, it's not.
No.
What happens in basketball is that because you have more teams in, you get more chances of upsets and it's more fun. Who wants some stupid, predictable thing? That's what's been wrong with the playoffs anyway. It's been so predictable because you've got such a limited number of teams. When you start this thing earlier and you have more teams in it, you're going to have a team that catches fire and they're going to do some things and people are going to be excited about it. And I'm glad that we have 12 teams now. The football championship subdivision, FCS, they got 20 teams in. And if they can do it, I'm absolutely certain there has been no reason why the FBS couldn't do it.
No,
and now that's over because they are going to go to 12 teams. I'd like 16, really. I think
that was what my dad was saying, 16.
I think 16 is ideal. The numbers come out because if you get an odd number, you end up with a bunch of real strange things where you have all these people that have bias and everything. So I like the fact that we're going to get there next year. We should have already been there, and this wouldn't have happened. And then the last thing I will say to all these Arkansas fans that think this is a bad idea, do you not have enough sense to understand how that could impact Arkansas?
That's the whole
You're
point.
sitting here with 4 teams. What's the likelihood of them ever making it opposed to 12? It increases your chances, and if you don't think that they've got a shot, I get it, but maybe they will someday. And how would you like it if they finally got good enough, but maybe they were the 7th team or the 6th team, and they didn't get in, but if it had been 12 teams, they would have made it.
Yeah, I think absolutely there's a whole argument for expanding the playoffs, and I was arguing with people all weekend long, and I know Alyssa Orange was too. It's crazy because I graduated from Florida, but I fought for Florida State all weekend long with people on Twitter. But my argument, and this is just my opinion, with the 4-team playoff, you have Power 5 conferences, Power 5. You have 4 teams in the playoff. That never made sense to me. Why have a Power 5?
And now we're going to go to Power 4 with 12, so it's better.
I mean, it is. It absolutely is. But why was that ever even? Part of me is going.
And if you have Power 4, think about it. Power 4, 8, 16. See how that works?
I like 16. You're on to something with 16 teams. I like 16 teams, but the playoffs needed to be expanded way before. It's happening next year. It needed to be done way before this year because now we're in a situation where I would have liked to see Georgia in it too.
I'm probably 10 years old, back in the old days when they voted when Associated Press, which was a news organization, and United Press International, which was a news organization, they voted the national champions, and in some years there were two, because one would vote for one, and then both teams could walk around going, we're the national champions. And I'm going, I don't want a national champion to be somebody votes on. You know why I felt that way? Because I'm sitting there watching high school football as a kid in my own hometown and following that and watching how teams go into the playoffs and go there, and then they win a state championship. Not because somebody voted for them, but because there was a criteria in place where when you win this game, you go on and you do this and you do that. Who wants voting?
No.
And we dealt with that. I dealt with
that. And that's subjective. That's all subjective.
Yeah.
It's not what.
And it was so stupid that those are, and then later the UPI became coaches because it became ABC and it became coaches poll. But so what? It doesn't matter. You were still voting on who the champion was. And finally, Roy Kramer comes along and says, No, we're going to come up with a formula, a formula for ranking teams, and then we're going to take the top two and have them play for it. Well, that was a miles better solution than the other, because now it's not a committee. And then what they follow that up with? Another stupid committee where people vote.
Another committee that is made up of people, and Mike Leach even said this when it first got started. He goes back and rants about it. Why make a committee full of people who haven't played the game, who aren't currently coaching it, who aren't, you're basing it off of subjectivity and not what you did on the field, which was my whole argument with the Florida State Seminoles, where you look at a team that's 13-0 and won their conference title.
That's the other change that needs to be when we go to 12 or hopefully 16. You don't do a committee voting on people. What you do if you have stuff in place, okay, if we got a Power Four, all four champions, all four second place teams in there.
Like basketball and baseball, automatic bids.
That's 8 teams. And then you maybe can go back to the Roy Kramer system where you have some ranking things and parameters that you go, and you would rank the highest next 4 teams and let them, but nobody votes. It's based on parameters that you fit.
Yeah. I mean, no one is turning around to the NCAA basketball tournament and going, oh, they won their conference championship. They shouldn't get in, though, because of strength of schedule or things like that. If you win the conference, it's an automatic bid.
Absolutely.
I agree completely with you, Mike, but we got to move on. We have a couple more questions to get to. Some basketball questions. Razor Alex 88. I was so blessed to have been a part of that win over Duke. The game I had circled, this game I had circled to be a must-go, but was turned away when tickets were at least $300 to $400. But somehow I found a ticket for $100, one of the best decisions of my life.
Well, and it's something that you will remember the rest of your life, being at that game. Now, with me, it was with football. It was the first time I ever went to War Memorial. I've talked about that 75 A&M Arkansas game. I will never forget that game because I'd never seen an atmosphere like that. And that was War Memorial. Everybody thinks the War Memorial is stupid right now, but it was an awesome place back then. I'd been to a lot of games in a lot of places, including some Cotton Bowls, and this was the most electric atmosphere I'd ever seen. Teddy Barnes, and by the way, Teddy Barnes passed away just a couple of days ago, but Teddy Barnes caught a touchdown pass right before halftime and broke open a scoreless game, and Frank Broyles always called him the immortal Teddy Barnes, and now they're both immortal. I mean, you just always remember things like that. A game you went to, and it can be basketball, it could be a baseball game, but where the atmosphere was so electric that you just went, man, you're going to remember that the rest of your life.
I'll remember it as a media member. I will remember that for the rest of my life as a media member, getting to sit and just take that all in. I was like, man, this is just so much fun. This is a great atmosphere, great environment. And seeing the Hogs win was pretty cool, too. So I thought that was all around pretty cool. I agree with you, Razor Alex 88 on that. Marty Bird's Proxy asks, update on the Walton Arena remodel. I'd hate to lose seating after seeing Wednesday's crowd. I can see some cosmetic things needed, somehow possibly decreasing congestion in the concourse and big games for one. But what a great atmosphere.
Yeah. I've been talking to some people recently, and I've been told that the board is concerned about that plan. I don't know if they're going to hold it up, but they're concerned about the cost of it. at a time when they need money for other things. So I don't know that's going to happen anytime soon, and I just keep hoping that Hunter will listen and come up with a different plan. Everybody that I talk to says, look, fix the restrooms, make the concourse better. A guy I was talking to the other day said, old people go to those games too, and everybody discriminates against old people. He said, but we pay a lot of the money. And he said, we need an escalator right there in the middle where we can go up and down. Because now what they do is they go over to the elevator and jam that elevator up, and it takes forever to go up and down in that thing. So get an escalator, put it right up the middle of that thing. And, you know, I've said before, Jeff Long, one of the few good things he did is he had a long-range plan that showed a possible renovation of Bud Walton, and what they did was they came out from the bottom of the concourse area, which is still probably 8-10 feet off the ground if you're outside, came out with steel beams connected to the beams that were already there and created a wider concourse that had glass around it. So if you're there at night, you're walking around, but you can see all over campus at night. You're not looking at brick walls. And because it was wider, they could take the concession stands and have them serve from both sides, and people had more room. You could get more people through the concession. So those are ideas that you could, you know, maybe work upon, but I don't know what we're going to see on this. I don't know.
Yeah, there's been no recent update on it from anybody. It's just it was talking about raising money for it, right? Because it is a big project that's going to cost a lot of money.
And they're going to change the name of it, which I don't like too. If somebody were to give $100 million, then it wouldn't be Bud Walton Arena. And if it's not Bud Walton Arena, it's not Bud Walton Arena as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I like the name. I think you can't change the name just because it's just
well, I knew Bud Walton. Everybody loved Bud Walton. He was the one Walton that was a true diehard Razorback fan. Come on.
Yeah, I think that's kind of sad if they change the name as well. And I don't like a remodel. You go in there for that Duke game and you see that environment and you go, how can you change this? It's so great. And Hot Dogger, though, has something to say about this conversation. He asked, Bud Walton was packed for the Duke game. What a great thing to see. Any chance they might increase seating in there? If you build it, they will come, like the Field of Dreams reference.
Well, I'm not an architect or construction engineer. When I've looked around, the only place I see where you might be able to add seats, if you go up to the upper deck, there's on each end you don't have seats, whereas you have seats on the north and south end.
Yes.
So maybe they could figure out a way to add some seats up there in that area, but you might add 500 seats up there. I don't think it might be worth the cost. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you'd have to get an architect in and look at it and look at the whole plan. But I just say, like I just said before, I don't know.
You might be able to lower the floor and make the court lower and add some seats underneath the seats that are already around the edge, and you wouldn't hardly see them, but they'd be under there. I've seen a design like that where, you know, the seats come down here, but then you got people under there sitting there, and they've got a thing over them, but they can see the court.
Wow.
And maybe that would put some more people around the court. I don't know.
That's interesting. I've never seen that. You'll have to show me a picture of that.
Well,
after
there was an early revision that somebody came up with of Razorback Stadium before it got double-decked and all the stuff you see now. And that's one of the things they were proposing, was to lower the field and put a bunch of seats under the existing seats and create like several thousand more seats down, but you have to lower the field.
Is it kind of like AT&T Stadium where they have those like boxes, like lower in?
But again, it's almost like, have you ever seen a deck cantilevered to where you've got people under it?
Yes, yeah.
Because the idea is, if you just, those stupid things that are 100 and something years old out in California, the Rose Bowl and all that, they go way back like this, and they get a lot of people, but when you're sitting back there, you're 100 miles from the field. Well, the idea later on was to cantilever this stuff, to go up higher, but then bring more people over the top of people that sit below, and so you get more people in a similar space.
That's an interesting idea, Mike.
So they might be able to do that. I don't know.
Have you seen the disgusting post on X that a Missouri fan put up involving two of our players? I won't mention it because it's such a cheap shot at those kids, but why does Missouri hate Arkansas so much?
You know, in this particular case, I can only assume that if you're a player that like from Missouri, if you're a former Missouri player and you come to Arkansas and you don't do much, I don't think they care. But if you transfer and you're really good and you're getting national attention, it's like you stole our good player. I think that makes people madder. So, but to the bigger question, I've really sat down and thought about this because we've talked about this so much. I believe if Arkansas and Missouri had come into the SEC at the same time, there might be a similar feeling between each school about that. Oh yeah, you're our rival, we're the new guys, you're the new guys, we're rivals. But Arkansas came in years before Missouri, and they already had their own rivals set up. They'd already determined, we don't like LSU, we want to beat them. We don't like Ole Miss, we want to beat them. And so then all of a sudden Missouri comes in, and quite frankly, they came in at the same time A&M, and Arkansas fans went, oh, A&M, we don't like them from the old Southwest Conference game. So you now had kind of three teams that you didn't like. Missouri was like, we don't have any history of them. What's the deal?
Yeah.
But yet, Sleepy Slive, I think, was the commissioner at the time, and he just went, hey, Arkansas fans, this is your rival, Missouri. And they told Missouri people the same way. Well, they're new, and they probably went, okay, yeah, this is cool. But Arkansas fans went, you're not going to tell us who our rival is. So I think that's where we're at right now. The best thing that could happen, and I don't know, I'm not a Missouri fan, I don't talk to Missouri fans, I don't know how they feel about this, but the best thing that could happen is when Oklahoma and Texas come into the league, Missouri will look at Oklahoma and went, yeah, we remember those guys. We don't like them. And then they can sit around and be mad at each other. I don't know.
Ooh, that's an interesting
Razorback
theory.
fans are not mad at Missouri. They're only mad because they take shots all the time.
All the time.
But they're
all
not
the time.
basically mad at them because they didn't have any history of them before all of this. And Razorback fans are more focused on other teams.
Yeah, and Southwest Conference, old rivalries, your Texas A&Ms, your Texas. I get that when they came in at the same time, it makes sense. Their focus was not on Missouri.
So maybe we ought to pretend to be Missouri fans next year when Oklahoma comes in, and we'll send bad emails over there and text, and get on Twitter and pretend to be you set up an account where you're a Missouri fan and you take shots at Oklahoma and try to make them mad.
Oh, well, okay, that's a good thought process. You think we could be convincing Missouri
well, we could
fans?
Convince other people to do it.
Oh, we've got to convince other people to do it. I don't think you and I could be convincing Missouri Tigers fans, but that's a conversation for another day. That's going to do it for this week's Ask Mike. We'll see you next Monday to answer more of your questions.